This is the AHSAA Weekly. I'm John Holder. This is your weekly look at everything going on with the Alabama High School Athletic Association. Coming up this week, we will take you to the AHSAA offices in Montgomery. We'll speak with Executive Director Steve Savarese and Assistant Director Kim Vickers as we talk about the legislative process going on right now in the Alabama High School Athletic Association. We'll also be joined in studio by a couple of coaches' wives. Ashley Smith of Jacksonville High School, also Hillary Ginn of Sachs High School, as they'll talk about a brand new group out there, especially for coaches' wives. It's called Beyond the Bleachers. We'll find out more information on that outstanding organization. And we'll also see highlights of two of the great individual players in high school basketball this season in the state of Alabama, Cam Woods of Pinson Valley High School, and also J.D. Davidson of Calhoun High School as well. All of that and more on this week's edition of the AHSAA Weekly.
Did you know that suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24? It is also one of the leading causes of preventable death in our nation. It is time we all start to talk more about youth suicide and how we can change these statistics. My name is Nick Saban, head football coach at the University of Alabama, and I'm working with the Jason Foundation and the AFCA to address this serious national health issue. Visit jasonfoundation.com to learn what you can do to help prevent youth suicide.
We are back on the AHSAA Weekly, and we're going to take you to the Alabama High School Athletic Association offices in Montgomery. We have for you this week what I think is going to be a very enlightening and educational segment coming up. We have the Executive Director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association, Steve Savarese, with us. Also Assistant Director for the Alabama High School Athletic Association, Kim Vickers. And we are going to be talking about the whole history of the Alabama High School Athletic Association and also just how the Athletic Association is governed and how the process works for the rules and so forth. It is going to be a very good segment coming up this week on the AHSAA Weekly. Coach, Kim, welcome in. Glad to have you with us this week.
Thank you, John. Great to be with you.
Thank you, John.
I have learned a lot in prepping for this interview. One of the things I was not aware of is the fact that next year, just a year from now, we will begin the 100th year of the Alabama High School Athletic Association being the governing body for high school athletics in the state of Alabama. That is tremendous. And tell us about some of the rich history of the Alabama High School Athletic Association.
Well, Kim, I'll let you handle this question since you've been around all 100 years. So I think you should tell them some of the things we've accomplished during that time.
Sure, Coach. I'll be glad to. Sure, John. Yeah, we're excited. In 2021, the Alabama High School Athletic Association will be celebrating its 100th anniversary. In 1921, the AHSAA was a private agency that was organized by its member schools as an organization to promote and control their interscholastic athletics. And over the last 100 years, we have seen this organization grow. We currently have 414 approximately high schools and approximately 333 middle schools composed of public, private, and parochial schools. So we are excited about the upcoming 100th anniversary, but we're also dedicated to what we do every day, and that's to serve our membership.
Coach, let's talk about the governance of this organization. Every organization has to have rules and regulations, and obviously an organization this big with a great job and responsibility you have of governing high school athletics in the state of Alabama. We have a legislative council, and then we have a central executive board of control. Tell us about these two organizations, these two parts of the organization, and what their functions are.
Well, thank you, John. Well, the legislative body of our association, which is made up of 32 members from 8 districts across the state of Alabama, they can either be principals, superintendents, coaches, any administrator, teachers who are elected by those districts, out of those 8 districts. They are the body that approves the bylaws of this association. Just to go through our process, in January this month, our member schools submit proposals, either new rules or amendments to the current rules, as it relates to participation in athletics within the AHSAA. And so, for example, if our schools want to change our transfer rule, let's just say instead of living within the school attendance zone or being eligible within the school attendance zone where your parents reside, they said you could live anywhere in the state of Alabama and play anywhere. We don't make that rule as an association. Our job is to govern the rule. The legislative body would look at a survey of our membership. Every school has one vote. So you take 400 votes, and then they meet as a legislative body, and they must pass with a 2/3 vote any amendment or new bylaw. So if our schools wanted to let everyone be eligible regardless of their residence, if they passed it with 23 votes out of the 32 legislative council members, then our board would ratify it and it would become a new bylaw beginning with the next school year. You know, one of the biggest misconceptions when you hear my name mentioned, John, is that's a bad rule I made. Sometimes I think it's a bad rule too. But our job here is strictly governance and to be consistent in the way we apply our rulings. So again, the membership makes all the rules we make. We cannot even change a word in a publication without shading it and having our legislative council approve any addition, deletion regarding any bylaw or new amendment.
Coach and Kim, you know, the old saying is that everybody has a boss. Some of us have more than one boss. In this situation with Alabama High School Athletic Association, you have bosses as well. The misconception is, as you just pointed out, that you're sitting down there in Montgomery making all these rules and doling out all of this information. But really, you have a boss as well. And I think from what you just said, I think I know who the boss is. Tell us who your bosses are, per se.
Go ahead, Kim.
Well, in reference to that, John, you know, as Coach mentioned, and you asked earlier as well, the Central Board of Control is the governing body that oversees the association. And the executive director acts as a manager for the association for the Central Board of Control. And his boss would be the Central Board of Control, and my boss is him and the Central Board of Control.
And my boss is also Beth Savarese. And I always get the last word in, John. It's yes, ma'am. And I always do that. So we, like you said, we have a number of bosses. And let me straighten it out too. Kim said I'm her boss. Well, we got Denise and Ron and David and everybody. We have 16 people who work here. We work collaboratively. We have an awesome staff. And I don't have to be a boss because what they do is they truly care about student athletes and want to see our championship programs be the absolute best, whatever they can be, whether it's our publications, whether it's our website. They work just as hard as they possibly can to provide the best opportunity for everyone involved. So I am so blessed. I work for a great Central Board of Control, and their authority is to hire an executive director or fire an executive director, and to make sure they hear all appeals. You know, people don't know we have appeals. For example, once I make a ruling, there's a 2-part appeal process. The school can appeal it to their local district, one of the 8 that I talked about, and then after, if they don't like how the district rules, they can take it to the Central Board of Control, and that the Central Board hears that ruling. And we have 15 members on our Central Board. 14 members come from our schools. They're elected out of each district. They represent their districts on the board, and we have 1 representative from the State Department of Education. There are 15 awesome individuals that truly care about the mission of our association and what this association does. They kept us very financially. We're in a great shape financially because of the implementation of policies and procedures by our board. And that's why we've returned over $15 million above the stipends we pay for events back to our member schools, the only state association in the country that has ever done that. It's because of the great leadership of the people who are elected by the schools within the state of Alabama. So we're very blessed to work with the folks we work with.
While we are clearing up misconceptions, here's another big one that I think a lot of folks around the state have, and that is they think that the Alabama High School Athletic Association is a governmental agency, and that could not be further from the truth. This is a private organization. No one, correct me if I'm wrong here, no one has to be a member, no one's forced to be a member of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. They're joining and being a member of the AHSAA voluntarily, correct?
Correct. Yes, sir. You know, we are an organization made up of our member schools. It is a voluntary organization, and the member schools, as Coach mentioned earlier, they write the rules and they agreed to abide by the rules because in the end, it is their rules. All these rules are theirs that they've written.
And one of the main concerns that a lot of folks have is the interpretation of rules, John. We have a logo that we have up here. Before you interpret any rules, call the Alabama High School Athletic Association. We truly attempt to be proactive. As another one of our sayings here is we're here to make kids eligible, not ineligible. But no one can take a shortcut, in trying to get someone eligible. That's why we're here, and if they'll take the time to call us, we'll prevent these eligibility issues we have. Remember why the rules were created. The rules are created to create a platform of fair play that everyone across the state plays by. It presents challenges. There's no perfect system, but I'm very proud of the time-tested 100 years of bylaws in our Constitution that has worked in our state, because it has truly worked.
As we wrap up our time together here, one of the reasons we have you on here in January is this legislative process that we talk about that goes on each year on a continuous basis with the AHSAA. That process is going on right now. So take us through with a timeline of these legislative proposals that may be coming before you over the next couple of months.
Go ahead, Tim.
Okay. Yes, John. The legislative process starts in January. Our member schools have an opportunity to submit proposals on new rules they'd like to add to the Constitution and bylaws or amendments to current rules. And through this process, they submit proposals to the association, including with the proposal, the rationale behind their submission. And then after the proposal process closes, our member schools will then have an opportunity to cast a vote. Basically, it's a survey. The member schools are surveyed on their thoughts on the proposals, and it is our hope that the principal of each school will involve his coaching staff or his administrative athletic staff to get involved with this process and pool their opinions together before the principal casts the vote. And then come the end of February, after all the proposals are submitted, they are put on a ballot. And then come April, at the regular scheduled annual meeting of our legislative council, the council will come in. They will spend several minutes in individual districts discussing the results of the surveys based on their district's votes. For an example, District 1 will look at the voting of how the survey turned out for the District 1 schools. And then they cast votes based on the results of their school surveys. And after that process is finished, if a 2/3 vote is accepted and passes the proposal, it takes a 2/3 majority, then the Central Board of Control can approve that proposal, and it will then be placed in the handbook as part of the Constitution and bylaws.
Very interesting information. I knew this would be an interesting and enlightening segment with you two here this week. Thank you so much for providing such great information to our viewers across the state of Alabama about the operation of the Alabama High School Athletic Association. Thank you for being with us this week to provide that information.
Well, John, it's always our privilege. And just one other component I did want to bring up is our strategic plan. And we have a large group that comes in, including parents, administrators, coaches, and so on, that formulates a strategic plan to give us direction for every 5 years. So our strategic plan plays a major part of where we go every 5 years, and that is with the input of all those parties involved.
Outstanding. Steve Savarese, Executive Director of the Alabama High School Athletic Association, Kim Vickers, Assistant Director with the Athletic Association as well, our guest this week on the AHSAA Weekly. Thank you for being with us this week.
Thanks, John. Always great being with you. Tell Vince hello.
We will do. We'll be back with more of the AHSAA Weekly in just a moment.
Don't crack under the pressure of foundation issues. The certified specialists at Ox Foundation Solutions can permanently fix foundation problems at the best price guaranteed. And did you know, moisture and unsafe air from your crawl space can infiltrate your home, causing health hazards and high utility bills? Ox Foundation Solutions has the best plan to keep your home safe. If you are experiencing any issues with your sidewalks, basement, crawl space, or foundation, get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
And we are back on the AHSAA Weekly. We have a special treat in store for you this week, something a little bit different. We're going to talk about an organization that began here in Alabama, in Northeast Alabama, as a matter of fact, and now very quickly in the last couple of months, it has spread across the state of Alabama. Coaches out there and coaches' wives, pay particular attention. We're going to tell you in this segment about Beyond the Bleachers. This is really a ministry, a support group, whatever you want to call it, an organization dedicated to coaches' wives, particularly here in the state of Alabama. We have Ashley Smith. She is the wife of the head football coach of the Jacksonville High School Golden Eagles, a team that went to the Super 7 this year in Class 4A. Clint Smith is her husband, and also Hillary Ginn. Her husband is Wes Ginn. He is an assistant football coach at Sachs High School in Anniston. Also is the head baseball coach at Sachs High School. Ladies, welcome in. Glad to have you with us on the AHSAA Weekly.
Thank you so much.
Let's talk a little bit. We won't dive into this very much, but let's talk a little bit about how this all began. This is really a very young organization. This just began literally a few months ago, right?
In August, we got a phone call. Ryan Limbaugh, who's our area FCA representative, he called Miss Connie Davison. Her husband is the athletic director at Oxford High School, and he said there was, a need for a ministry for coaches' wives, and I think that's something that the Lord had laid on Miss Connie's heart many years previously, that the Lord just allowed everything to come together at one time. And so Connie rallied up some coaches' wives, and we met and hit the ground running, and it's grown since, I believe we met in August. And, which is right before, as a football coach's wife, our busy season.
Yes.
And everybody jumped in, and we kind of set out, what we wanted our goals to be, how we wanted to minister to coaches' wives and encourage them and show them, God's love, even in those busy times. And, so, a couple of months later, we're up to just right under 200 members. So it's growing big.
That is amazing. Not just in Alabama, but around the Southeast as well. Hillary, when you first heard about this, I would imagine every coach I've talked to that's a member of this has been very excited, and the reaction was, wow, finally, at last, something for coaches' wives. Was that what you thought?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things, too, that I didn't so much take for granted, but I never knew even how much more of a need there really was for that, because I have been very blessed. Since Wes and I have been together, I've had tons of people in my life, coaches' wives and friends, who have been able to really rally behind me in those busy seasons. But what we've realized is not every wife has those people in their life to continue encouraging them during those busy seasons or in the lackluster seasons where you're really struggling. And so I was excited because I knew that there was a need in my heart for it, but it was even more so realizing that not everybody is always gifted with that sense of community. And so I know that we've been able to meet tons of wives who are in a place of life where, they need that just extra push during those busy seasons, that extra, just knowing that you have someone to call or who's been in that situation that can really encourage you, kind of push you through it.
Both of you, if you're out there talking to a coach's wife that's watching somewhere in Alabama, watching this program, or a coach maybe the wife's not watching, the coach is watching, why should they join Beyond the Bleachers? What's in it for them, so to speak?
Well, John, I think there's safety in numbers, so to speak. Yes. Anytime that there's that sense of community of you have something in common with other women, and so that life of a coach's wife is just that common denominator. And, I want to be really careful to not make it sound like, oh, the life of a coach's wife is so hard and it's just such a burden to carry, because it's not. But in the same sense, there are tough times, and there's going to be times when when you're winning, everybody loves your husband. When you're not, they don't. And that's just kind of how that goes. And so to be able to have other women stand beside you, or virtually through Facebook, to encourage you even after those losses. I found it so fun on Saturday mornings, for years as a coach's wife. We get the paper and you look to see those scores around the state, which meant nothing to me, for the most part. My biggest thing was, trying to find a mascot that maybe John didn't know who the mascot was. That sounds like a weird school. And so, but it just gave new meaning to that. And what I found is that we began to rally around each other. And even, I think sometimes, and I think this is with every aspect of life, sometimes you get caught up in just my world of Jacksonville High School, and, but it's bigger than that. And so you start to follow other teams and how they're doing. And so there's that excitement of when people are finding success, but there's also that time of when the Lord will lay somebody on your heart, hey, we need to reach out to them, because, this is maybe it's a first year coach who's, trying to, change up some things, which we know is not always easy to come into. And maybe the season's not turning out maybe how they wanted to, how they would like for it to. And that coach's wife just needs the encouragement to know, hey, we may have played at the Super 7 this year, but that's not what we walked into, and just that encouragement of, hey, I've been there, I've done that. And two, another thing that's been exciting for me is just, we run the gamut of ages. There's coaches' wives without children, coaches' wives with brand new babies, coaches' wives who have players on the field, coaches' wives whose babies are have grown up, moved away, and now they're helping other coaches' wives rein their herd of children in. And it's just neat to see all those different perspectives. If you're a young wife, to know, hey, I'm going to survive, rallying up these, kids in the bleachers, or, I will be able to eventually fill my son's belly up so he doesn't eat us out of house and home. Just the different perspectives. And it's just encouraging. And so even though sometimes that might be lonely, there may be lonely times, but it's just knowing that there are other women out there that are checking in periodically and posting, and just that banter back and forth that can happen, that even expands beyond Facebook now, for me, with a lot of coaches' wives that I didn't know, even of schools that are relatively close by, but I would not have had, our paths would not have crossed, other than this. Right.
So we've convinced folks that they need to join and be a part of that. So how do they do that? If we have a coach's wife out there watching, you mentioned Facebook, how do they join? How do they become a part of Beyond the Bleachers?
Sure. Essentially, since we're still kind of a young group, social media is our biggest platform right now. We do have a group on Facebook, so you can search Beyond the Bleachers, and it'll ask you a few little questions just about your background, about your husband, where he's at, just so we can kind of get to know you. It is a private group because, whereas we don't want to be, secret society, but our group, essentially, we're talking about things, that we deal with, that our families are dealing with and that our husbands may be dealing with. And we want it to be a safe place where people can really, we can get to know each other and families and things like that. And so Facebook is really where we're at right now. But we've got a website launched. We hope to post blog posts there and just really highlight coaches' wives and their families, pictures, and that's what it's been great. The Facebook page has been really great to just kind of interact with people, and we can just talk about our week, and we can celebrate wins and really encourage everybody through the losses and things like that. Talk about what we fed our kids that night. We do recipes. My kids eat a lot of Cheetos and Nutella sandwiches, but social media is really where we get started, and we do a lot through there.
Well, it is a great idea. Thank you both for coming and spending time with us this week on the AHSAA Weekly. We want to encourage everybody out there, if you're a coach, a coach's wife, to join this group, find out more information about it. Statewide, it's not just in East Alabama. Anybody in the state of Alabama encouraged to be a part of that. Thank you, ladies, for coming and being with us this week.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Ashley Smith and also Hillary again, our guests this week on the AHSAA Weekly. Back with more in just a moment.
WOTM, your new home for high school sports in Alabama. WOTM has you covered with live coverage of all 7 championship games of the Super 7. WOTM is available to all TV providers in Alabama. If WOTM is not currently a part of your channel lineup, call your provider and request that they add WOTM. WOTM, your exclusive TV home for the AHSAA Super 7 basketball, baseball, and softball championships. All live only on WOTM.
Closing out this week's edition of the AHSAA Weekly, once again, we'll take you around the state and let you look at a couple of top individual basketball players in the state of Alabama. We'll begin with Cam Woods of Pinson Valley High School, one of the outstanding basketball players in any classification. You see him here shooting three-point shots, a great point guard, great outside shooter for the Pinson Valley Indians, a team that not only good in football but also good in basketball as well. Cam Woods, one of the top players in the state of Alabama, certainly can fill it up, does a good job running the floor, penetrating on the inside, running jump shots, three-point shot artist from the outside. And we see him here against Gadsden City. This is a road game. Earlier in the last several days, played at Gadsden City High School in Gadsden. Again, great guard for the Pinson Valley High School Indians with assist, great passer, great defender. You see the steal here going to the other end, and then a great shot, three-point shooting artist as well, Cam Woods of Class 6A Pinson Valley High School. And this young man is J.D. Davidson from Calhoun High School in Weetahatchee down in Lowndes County, just below Montgomery. This is in a game against Lindsay Lane Christian High School out of Athens. And Calhoun, J.D. Davidson, putting on a show in this particular game. We see a little bit of Tommy Moore right there, the leading scorer in the nation in high school basketball, but the show really put on by young Mr. Davidson of Calhoun High School. Not only a good penetrator, great shot, up and under, puts the shot in. Some tremendous dunks, one-handed dunks, two-handed dunks. One of the high-flying players in any classification in the state of Alabama, J.D. Davidson of Calhoun High School in Lowndes County in Weetahatchee, Alabama, putting on a show in this game against Lindsay Lane Christian out of Athens earlier this week. In slow motion, look at that, a windmill dunk. Showtime with young Mr. Davidson from Calhoun High School in Weetahatchee. There it is one more time in fast motion, points to the crowd. Great young man and a great basketball player, one of our smaller schools in the state of Alabama. Well, as we wind up our show, we'll tell you that this coming weekend we have the AHSAA Bowling Regionals coming up. Also this weekend we have the Wrestling Duels tourneys coming up all across the state of Alabama. You're seeing some of that information. As we wind up the program, we'll see you back here next week for another edition of the AHSAA Weekly.